All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the last 5 episodes of Cobra Kai. Does it deliver? Does it stick to the landing? Does it punch you in the face? Maybe. Let's talk about it. All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome to Movie Emporium, spoiler-filled discussion of the last 5 episodes of Cobra Kai Season 6, which is Part 3. All right, once again, spoiler discussion straight ahead. I won't get into all the details, but I want to get into some major details of the series, of the ending of this series and the conclusion, and get into the nuts and bolts of why I think Cobra Kai started out really strong and was kind of a failure in the end. Okay, so Cobra Kai officially ends in the 6th season. It ended the last part with, of course, the death of one of the students from Cobra Kai itself. It was actually pretty impactful. I was actually quite surprised they went there, but I felt that it really had emotional stakes and developed this really interesting thing that Cobra Kai tends to not want to do, which is be very dark and very gritty. I think it goes into campy, like after school territory, like Saved by the Bell a lot of times. And I don't think it entirely works. And I've made my complaints in the past, which people don't agree with, which is fine. I know people enjoy the campy tones to this series, but I think the series when it was on YouTube Red was such a strong continuation. Yeah, it had its like weirdness, and yes, William Zabka as Gianni was a little too strong in his kind of 80s machismo, and Daniel was kind of still just the a-hole that we've known him for. But I think it really enhanced what Johnny's character is, which is such a tragic individual that by the time we get to season 6, it's kind of gone by the wayside. The only thing left, and as you know, once again, spoilers, the only thing left is the redeeming thing for Johnny at the end of the original Karate Kid, where he lost to Daniel LaRusso. This is his way for him to get his redemptive arc, which is what this story's always been about. It's always been about Johnny going from a very sad, drunken individual to a guy who now has a family, who has a kid, who has 2 sons, who has everything going for him. He's now good friends, well, somewhat good friends with Daniel LaRusso. He now is an individual that has a lot of purpose, but in the process, I feel like his redemptive arc has come. You need to have him fight someone, and that's of course where Louis Tan comes into the mix, the guy that's on the group of the really over the top and silly kind of strong force. It's like when you watch the Hunger Games and you have like District 1, that's what Louis Tan, he's that District 1, bad dude guy that has a lot of things behind him. Terry Silver's kind of fronting him and stuff like that. And then you have you have the one that's a conflicted guy, you have the girl who's the clearly infatuated with being an influencer. They are what they are. They're very stereotypes. A lot of these characters, unfortunately, are stereotypes. But as we see the end of part 2, which unfortunately I didn't do a review for because I forgot it was coming out, ended with a pretty dramatic moment. But my point of the matter is, this is all about Johnny's redemptive arc. It always has been. Daniel LaRusso had his arc in the 3 movies, and he's going to be in Karate Kid Legends. But it's really about what Johnny ends up becoming in the end. And I think the failures of this last part are not the fact that Johnny ends up fighting Louis Tan to get his redemptive arc officially finished. It's the fact that it feels so compromised in its cheesiness. It feels so easily wrapped up. It feels that the bad guys are easily defeated. It feels like the characters have their gushy moments. It feels like everything that about this series that had such interesting ideas early on in the take of the series has completely turned into a Saturday school matinee special or whatever. It's really cheesy. Everybody, it's the unfortunate nature of the show being as old as it is, being 6 years and taking as long as it has, is characters like, and putting this in like in the tail end of high school. People like Taylor Buchanan and of course Mary Mauser and Peyton List and the other characters are way past high school age at this point. They like Mary Mauser's like 28 years old or something like that, and I don't want to blame them for staying on this series because I'm sure they got paid a pretty decent amount of money, but they feel weird and out of place. They feel weird and out of place for a series that's about high schoolers and championship fighting karate. And they are put in a predicament by the writers and creators of the series to be very one note and very undimensional. And their wrap ups are very cheesy and very kind of, if you ever watch a love story, like a Hallmark movie, it feels like a very Hallmarky type of ending to a series. And, Mary Mauser's character of Samantha is going off to, a different country after she experienced what she experienced at the Sai Takai and stuff like that. And then you have like Robbie and Tori finding their love and becoming spokesperson for karate, and Miguel and his family. Miguel is like conflicted because he got into a good college. And then, of course, you have Eli and Hawk and stuff like that, and them getting into the same college. And it's a lot of like weird wrap up for a series that felt very strong and very very kind of gritty. Now it feels very campy and over the top and silly, and it just doesn't work for me, to be fairly honest. It doesn't mean this, like, the last 5 episodes weren't fun to watch, but the other issue, the one thing I've complained about a lot about this series, is it goes to the well so many times over and over and over, the same place that the final fights are going to be in, that it actually becomes boring. That's why this Sakai Takai, or whatever it's called, was such an interesting idea, even though it wasn't executed very well, but it was a fun kind of push forward. It gave some real interesting depth to Miyagi and Daniel LaRusso's story. It was a different place. And then, of course, we come back and Daniel's like really upset and really kind of downtrodden, and he just doesn't want to deal with it anymore. And Gianni tries to convince him, and Gianni really into bringing the Sakai Takai back because apparently Terry Silver has cancer of some sort, which is really out of left field. And there's like play it there, whatever nonsense. There's a lot of like leaning into trying to wrap up stories and stuff like that. And, Daniel LaRusso finally coming back because, it's going to be in Hill Valley. He gets to make that choice. Once again, we're just going straight back to the Hill Valley Fighting Championship, just with a more worldwide tournament. I'm like really shocked that the creators of the show and the story runner would really accept a character who's running this tournament to really bring it to Hill Valley, or to the valley in this story. I'm sorry if I said Hill Valley, which I know is Back to the Future, but it really feels cheap and kind of a little boring in one note, to be fairly honest. And the fact the world would come, it just take it somewhere else, to be fairly honest, or just don't do it. I don't know. It really is they really put themselves in the corner by killing off that character at the end of the part 2, because now it's, oh, we're going back to the same location. And then, of course, some of the really interesting stuff is how John Kreese handles all this. And I think it's a really interesting kind of arc, because he went from being a really unsavory individual to kind of being betrayed by Terry Silver, and then coming back and trying to be with his old master and his granddaughter, who betrays the old master and kills him and takes over, which doesn't really lead into anywhere. It leads John Kreese going, Terry Nichols, Terry Nichols, do you want to fight for Cobra Kai and stuff like that? And it basically, I think John Kreese has a pretty interesting. Cobra Kai has always been, once again, about redemptive arcs of these individuals of Cobra Kai, whether it be John Kreese or Johnny or something like that. It's never really been about Daniel LaRusso, even though he's like a major character. But it's really interesting to see John Kreese so distraught over the death of this person that he's officially going to end it with Terry Silver, and I do appreciate that. What's really weird about that is not what he and Johnny and him finally come to terms with what they did and what he did, and like how it basically was an abusive relationship in a lot of respects. And I really appreciated that, Johnny got it all out there, and John Kreese accepted it and really realized he made a mistake, and his whole life was a mistake, leading into how he was treated and how he was punished, how this old master in this village really kind of put him in this kind of plan, how Terry Silver put him on this trajectory. And I think, as campy and cheesy as it can be, I think Mark Kove at least does a competent job. And I think William Zabka does a pretty competent job. I think Ralph Macchio is given a little bit too much over the top silliness in this series, and has always gotten like it's just weird. But I like that moment. But the thing that really is, there's two things on here that I really don't like. The end fight between Terry Silver and Martin Kove is really campy. It's really cheesy. I guess you can kind of remind you of like the 80s or 70s martial arts action films or whatever, where they're like two guys fighting and it was just over the top and silly. The way it's handled, though, is not the fact that they both die. It's the fact that no one acknowledges it after they die. The only time it's acknowledged, I think, is when Louis Tan's character, the main like kind of side villain or whatever, acknowledges where is Terry Silver. Is never acknowledged by Gianni. Is never acknowledged by Daniel LaRusso or any of the people in the crew. It just thrown away. It's like, well, the explosion, cool, but nothing's acknowledged. It's just like, we need a way for these two guys to finale their story, be finality and stuff like that, and officially never come back. And if there had been an acknowledgement, because especially when Johnny and John have their moment, and I think that was good finality for that, but it's just never acknowledged again. It really is weird. And once again, it gets to a point where there's like, because everybody is on, because you knew it was going to happen, where they're fighting, they're doing the Takai or whatever, everything's being trained, all that stuff. It's very typical, atypical stuff. You get to a point where all the points are even between the two groups, and it's like, oh, we're gonna have the dojo masters fight each other. It's like, we know where this is headed. Johnny's gonna get his redemptive arc. He's gonna come back. He's gonna be able to fulfill what he failed at. It's gonna be very very of its type, and so on and so forth. And of course, he defeats him. It is kind of cool to see, Daniel LaRusso, who's hated Cobra Kai for so long, come out in the black gi and stuff like that. I think that was kind of cool. It really is kind of a 180 or 360 or whatever, however you want to circle it, of just kind of this finality for these characters. And of course, Johnny wins. He wins the tournament, and they win. Of course, Miyagi-Do and all that stuff, and Cobra Kai, they get their finality and stuff like that. And of course, Cobra Kai's reopened. Johnny takes over the thing that Daniel gives him. He gives him Cobra Kai, and you see all the characters who aren't going off to do photo shoots and going off in other countries be part of this group. But it leads into some just, okay, cool, it's over, thank God, we don't have to watch this again. And once again, the stuff leading up to it's very cheesy. It's very over the top and silly. It doesn't make any sense. I think, it keeps harping on this like family dynamic, but it just doesn't do it very well. They're putting themselves in a corner, and I haven't even got to my biggest complaint of this series, of this season, of this part. But it leads to like the end where, you remember the scene where Daniel caught the fly in the chopsticks and Miyagi got upset. It leads to a really fun end credit sequence, or like mid credit sequence, where they do that scene where I thought they were going to play into Karate Kid Legends, but there is there's no inkling of talking about Karate Kid Legends in this series. But it leads to Daniel trying to get that fly, and of course Johnny smashing it, which leads into the kind of the ideologies between Johnny and Daniel. Daniel's more, focused on kind of the motions of karate, and Johnny's more about force and power and stuff like that. But everybody goes off into their own little realm and, own little news world, and everybody's happy, and Johnny's got a house and a family, and Daniel's got his life again. The karate can continue, and, he has everything, and it leads into the perfect ending. Now, with that said, I do have to say the single most upsetting, single most why they do this moment is not the simple fact that they brought Miyagi back. It's that they did it like they did with with Egon Spangler when he's fighting with Daniel. It's a dream sequence, but when he's turning with Daniel, you can tell it's not Pat Morita, because of course Pat Morita passed away. Is when they show shots of him from the front, and you can definitely tell it's like a Star Wars Rogue One situation. I don't think they needed to bring Miyagi back in this series. I understand Daniel is very conflicted with what Miyagi's revelations of him in the Sekai Takai, and the fact that he was somebody who murdered someone and was on the run and stuff like that. I think the idea of the series should have been more focused once again on Johnny's redemptive arc. I think the fact that they threw this story with Chosen, they threw this story with Daniel trying to figure out the back history of Miyagi, really kind of tampers this idea of who Miyagi was down a notch. And bringing him back for that last scene in the dream sequence was one of the most offensive things I've seen in quite a while, to be fairly honest. And I'm not like, I love Karate Kid, but I'm not like a Karate Kid super fan. But it feels like an insult to Pat Morita and to that character to throw him into this like they did with Peter Cushing in Rogue One, and with, of course, the Egon Spangler character and stuff like that. And here, it just like, it's very cheap. It's like the Christopher Reeve thing in The Flash with Superman. It's very cheap. It's very, why would you do that? I don't know. Maybe people will enjoy it. Maybe people will get emotional, but I feel it's a very cheap tactic to bring out emotionality to a series that really was kind of, I guess they probably did it because they knew the series was ending and they knew the series needed some kind of oomph, but this is not the way to do it, to be really honest. So I really didn't like that moment. I really didn't. I think it's a very poor tactic that screenwriters and creators like kind of hobble on to get a story through, and it just doesn't work for me. So it really brought the whole entire series down a lot for me. It didn't need to happen. So I mean, the flashbacks to the original movies and stuff like that is perfectly fine. You do that just to kind of keep the story in check. But when they bring in a character that's passed away, especially an actor, and they do that nonsense, it feels like a very cheap tactic, and it's kind of a shame that they did it. So, but I'm going to kind of end it there. Once again, we have one more Karate Kid movie coming out with Ralph Macchio and, of course, Jackie Chan. But as the series concludes and officially ends now that it's out, I really think that the series had a really good high moment in the first 2 seasons, maybe 3rd season, and just kind of completely just flatlined in the process. I think it had a really nice high and just didn't know where to go with it. It kind of repeated the same thing over and over and over. The characters got really cheesy and dumb. And I think in the end, the season 6 had a really good middle part, really 2 bad beginning and end parts. And I think this last 5 episodes, I'm going to give a 3 out of 10, to be fairly honest. I don't think it's very good. I think there's moments with the season. I'm going to give it like a 6 out of 10. And for the series as a whole, I'll give it a 7 out of 10, to be fairly honest. If it had strengthened and it kept the highs of the first like 3 seasons, I think it would have been interesting. But as far as the series goes, it fell off a crater so hard and landed like a Wile E. Coyote or whatever in a gorge or something like that. So yeah, the last 5 episodes are complete disappointment, completely just kind of delve into the worst tendencies of what a series can do when it's popular like this. So anyways, that is my take on the last 5 episodes of Cobra Kai. There you go. Sorry that was really downtrodden, but I just feel like the series was just really kind of destroyed in a lot of respects. So anyways, with that said, that'll do it. That'll be my take of not only the last 5 episodes of Cobra Kai, but as well as the last season of Cobra Kai and the series as a whole. It was good to see these characters back. I love that William Zabka got another chance. I love they brought some of these characters that are very legacy characters that are a popular series back. I just wish they had done better with them. That's all. So anyways, there you go. With that said, thank you so much for watching. Comments below. What did you think of the last 5 episodes? What did you think of the series, the season, whatever you want to say? Let me know what you think. Did you like that Miyagi moment, all that good stuff? But otherwise, if you like what you see on this video, awesome. Hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button, and we'll see you guys for the next video. Peace out, guys.